So I had a tough beginning because Chemi came in and he's the peace guy, and I'm going to be their war woman this morning. So wake up. Any of you here is a fan of this Game of Thrones? Okay. The rest try to learn something new. Okay. I actually am going to take you to a tour in Fantasyland. I'm going to show you Game of Thrones, and I'm going to show you that our lives that we live in are much more complicated and much more interesting than what we're seeing in the series. There are a lot of battles happening around the world, and the reason that we thought that you need to know about it is because startup companies, technology-based companies, must understand everything that's going on a global basis in order to be able to make better judgments. Some of the wars I'm going to talk about you can see here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but obviously we have a very busy war zone around the world. The first and foremost, and every day we open the newspapers, we see something about Trump and China. There is a war of who's going to be the next superpower, who is going to be the biggest economy in the world, who is going to control tech. Why control tech? Tech is a new weapon, maybe not really new. It's actually been very old. I want to say something about the previous presentation that was just on stage regarding AI, and I claim that 50, 60 years ago, we looked at things like Cold War fighting as the new weapon and things that were all based on technology. I tend to say, and I think you'll all agree with me, that the new weapon, anybody wants to guess what it is? One word. Data. Now, I'm going to say something now, which is very, aggressive, but I'll say it anyway. I tend to think that in the war of data between China and the US, I think the US is lagging after China. Why do I think the US is lagging after China? Because China has no rules. It has rules. But essentially, all the data belongs to one entity, which is the government. Now, what happens when one entity has so much data with a population of many people? It makes their algorithms and ability to use the data to be smarter much, much better. So this is a controversial thing, but I think, we'll need to think about that. Now, what do I mean by who will you side with? So at least in Israel, and I would pretty much guess the same happens in Germany and definitely in Berlin, we had a privilege. We had a privilege because we are sort of in the twilight zone. When there was an interesting company we wanted to partner with that are American, we were best friends with the American. When companies in China were interested to work with us, we were friends with China. But guess what? Very quickly, we're going to have to choose sides. We can't be everybody's friends. We have to make sure we know what is our roadmap, where do we want to act, and therefore, who should we partner with? Now, just to give you a very brief example, in the US, a company that has an ownership of higher than 25% by Chinese entity is going to have a problem. They're going to have a problem doing business in America. They're going to have a problem buying businesses in America. So things that we shouldn't really, or we didn't deal with maybe only a year ago, is something that we all need to consider and take into consideration when we grow our companies. So the US is brutal, and they're attacking hard. They started with very aggressive attacks on specific companies in the telecom industry for two reasons. First reason is both ZTE and Huawei just ate the American company's breakfast. So that's one thing. The second thing relates to what we heard Tamir Pardo say this morning, which is called backdoor. Letting those companies put together the infrastructure of all the telecom in the US means essentially that you have a backdoor in your backyard to the Chinese government. These were specific attacks. Obviously, there is a general attack, which is just simply putting a new tariff and penalizing everybody who's dealing with China. But what actually happened because of this? Paradoxically, the US companies got hit not less than the Chinese companies. Why? Because Chinese markets are huge, and they're huge also for American companies. And we saw two big examples of companies that really got a hit in their value because of what happened in the respective Chinese markets. This is, by the way, Apple and NVIDIA got other problems, but also the Chinese market was a big problem for them. Now, we had China and the US who are trying to be superheroes, but I think you would all agree with me, they're a friend, dear, maybe not dear anymore after the recent news. Jeff Bezos is also trying to take over the world. Now, he's doing a very good job as chief of staff of whatever army he has, and he's conquering one territory after another. Started with online retail, by far the largest player around the world, $180 billion in revenue annually. He's the biggest in cloud services, $20 billion. And another fact that not too many people are aware of, that Amazon is actually third largest media companies, second or third only after Facebook and Google, which to me was amazing when I learned that. And obviously the sky's the limit. There is pharma, there are other things. Who knows where it's gonna go. But Amazon, or Jeff, is a very formidable enemy. And so all kinds of other players are teaming up to try to tame the beast. They can't stand on the sidelines and just wait for Amazon to take over the world. And what we're seeing is all kinds of alliances, which to me were very surprising to see, but all the big names are having to collaborate to try to knock down Amazon. Is Amazon too big to fail? I think probably. I think that regulation or regulators are not going to wait for too long until they're starting to break this up. Amazon is very big, too strong. But I also think that there may be another reason for the breakup. There is starting to be analysis in the market that claims that Amazon sum of the parts is more or higher than the sum of the whole. So for example, there are cloud businesses that are making $20 billion a year. People estimate the value of that business to be between $400 and $600 billion. This is when Amazon by a whole is worth $250 million, meaning a breakout is something that the capital markets may actually demand Amazon to do. Retail. Has winter come on retail? We all know the stats. More clothes are shutting down than opening up. It's a bloodbath. You probably cannot read it, but many stores are closing down. Is it the end of retail? I don't know. Europe hasn't got hit that much compared to the US, but I'm imagining the same trend will happen here. So is it the end? I actually don't think so. Why I don't think so? I think it's the end of the physical store as we know it. I think that physical stores are going to change. They're going to have a new form factor. They're going to probably be much smaller, much smarter, much more technology-based. And the best evidence for this, for me, is that I'm seeing many physical store owners coming to Israel searching for all kinds of technologies to make their physical stores better, which means it's not the end. Regulators are probably, or the war with the regulators, or the wars that the regulators are imposing on the tech giants, this is an endless story. You know, we've been talking about it forever, and only God knows when it's going to stop, okay? Spoke about it too much. Taxes. Just like I said in the first slide, technology is the new weapon. Therefore, companies or states or cities who want to survive, who want to flourish, must have technology within their ecosystems. How do you get technology within your ecosystem? You start reducing taxes. So I don't remember the order, but each of these nations, all of which understand exactly how important technology is, started dropping their taxes. And it was essentially a downward spiral where the competition led to the fact that there's almost no taxes being paid, which is something that's not sustainable. Obviously, somebody needs to put a stop to it. Europe is trying to be putting together some consortiums so that at least within the ecosystem of the European Union, there won't be fights on who is going to be the hottest hub and the cheapest hub for tech companies. But this is yet to be seen how it's going to evolve. For those of you who really like Game of Thrones, you can understand the slide. For those of you who don't, I'll just say that we almost forgot about Russia. We used to think there is a Cold War between the US and Russia. Now we're not sure anymore. Is Trump and Putin friends or foes? I'm not sure anymore. Thank God for the Department of Justice that is going to have to deal with this issue. Another fight, a fight in the media space. Netflix is killing everybody. All the other companies, all the legacy media companies are piling up money. Interest rate is low, so everybody can assume debts on their balance sheets. And it's literally game of loans. By the way, Netflix is also lending. The worst fight was actually with Disney, when Disney realized one morning that her ally, Netflix, which she's giving all her content to, is going to eat her alive. So they split up and they're in a big fight now. But this is only one example of many other fights in this business. We spoke about Apple that got a hit because of the Chinese market. Well, it's not the only reason. Another reason that Apple is suffering is because capital markets are sick of seeing hardware sales. They don't think it's worth much money, and they want people to have services on their balance sheet. So we came up at Bank Leumi at a new acronym. We call it HACK, hardware as a killer. So for all of you startups, try to do services. People don't appreciate hardware anymore. So like you all know, SaaS, the buzzword, the new buzzword. But SaaS has another meaning for us. It's actually services survival. Those who want to be worth money need to find a way to be able to get money from their clients or customers on a recurring basis. No, okay. I'll fast forward. Chemi spoke about the 0 to 1. The 0 to 1 in our story is the dragon. The dragon is the digital native companies who are coming up with very, very smart ways of solving problems of all industries. They're flexible, they're mobile, you don't have to wait online, it's intuitive, and they're eating everything alive around them. You probably said, you know, how come she didn't speak on cyber? There's so much to say about cyber that I decided to just say one thing. They got hacked. For those of you who are less aware, last season, which was supposed to be the last season, was hacked, it's a loss of a lot of money, and also the last episode, which was a really bad thing for Netflix. So who is going to win the Game of Thrones? I claim that the status that we are at now, which is very chaotic, is something that all of you in the crowd, startup companies, entrepreneurs, just people with ideas, try to use the chaos, because out of chaos, a lot of big companies and successful companies are born. Thank you very much.